There's one part of this story I never wanted to share, and honestly, I still don't know how my mother lived with herself after this. It's a memory that's etched in my mind like a scar, a constant reminder of the lie that ruined everything. I remember it like it was yesterday, the courtroom, the smell of old wood and stale air, the sound of my mother's voice trembling as she spoke. It was the moment my identity was stolen, the moment my life changed forever. I was just a child, but I knew something was wrong. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I sensed it, like a nagging feeling in the back of my mind. It was as if I was living in a dream that wasn't mine, a dream that was forced upon me. My mother had just married a man with 3 sons, and I was suddenly thrust into a new family, a new life. I got a new name, Christina Amelia French, and with it, a new identity, or so I thought. The loss of identity was just the beginning. It was like I was living in a state of emotional disorientation, confusion, and uncertainty. I didn't know who I was, where I belonged, or what was happening to me. It was like I was lost in a sea of unfamiliar faces, unsure of how to find my way back to shore. And my mother, the one person who was supposed to guide me, to protect me, was nowhere to be found. She was too busy building her new life, her new family, to notice the damage that was being done to me. As I look back, I realized that this was just the beginning of a long and painful journey. It was the start of a cycle of abuse, of silence, of fear. But it was also the start of something else, something that would eventually set me free. It was the start of my journey towards healing, towards recovery, towards reclaiming my identity and my voice. I remember the first time I felt like I was living a lie. It was like I was wearing a mask that hid my true self, my true feelings. I was forced to pretend that everything was okay, that I was happy, that I was part of this new family. But deep down, I knew it wasn't true. I knew that I was living a lie that was suffocating me, a lie that was destroying me. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, I started to feel like I was losing myself. I was losing my sense of identity, my sense of self. I was becoming a shadow of my former self, a shadow that was barely visible. But then something inside me started to stir. It was a spark of resistance, a spark of defiance. It was a spark that would eventually ignite a fire that would burn away the lies, the secrets, the shame. And I didn't know it yet, but this was the first warning sign. It was the first sign that something was wrong, that something was off. It was the first sign that I needed to pay attention, to wake up, to take notice. But I didn't know it then. All I knew was that I was living in a state of confusion, a state of uncertainty. I was living in a world that was not mine, a world that was forced upon me. And I didn't know how to escape, how to break free. As I sit here, reflecting on my past, I am reminded of the power of storytelling. I am reminded that our stories have the power to heal, to inspire, to set us free. And I want to hear from you. I want to know that you're out there, that you're listening. Tell me the time and country you're watching from. I'm curious how far my story will reach. Let's break the silence. Let's break the shame. Let's start a conversation that will set us free. I often think about what my life would have been like if I had never experienced the trauma that I did. Would I have been happier, more confident, more carefree? Or would I have still struggled with the same issues, the same doubts, the same fears? I'll never know, but what I do know is that my experiences have shaped me into the person I am today, and for that, I am grateful. The journey towards healing is not an easy one. It's a journey that's filled with twists and turns, ups and downs. It's a journey that requires courage, resilience, and determination. But it's a journey that's worth it, a journey that's necessary. Because when we heal, when we recover, we become stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. We become the people we were meant to be, the people we were born to be. As I look back on my life, I am reminded of the power of the human spirit. I am reminded that we are capable of overcoming even the most daunting challenges, even the most painful experiences. We are capable of rising above, of finding a way out, of healing and recovering. And I want to inspire you, I want to motivate you to do the same. Don't give up. Don't lose hope. Keep pushing forward. Keep striving for a better tomorrow. Because tomorrow is a new day, a new chance, a new opportunity to start again, to begin anew. The memories of my past still linger, still haunt me, but they no longer define me. They no longer control me. I have taken back my power, my voice, my identity. I have reclaimed my life, my story, my truth, and I want to encourage you to do the same. Take back your power, your voice, your identity. Reclaim your life, your story, your truth. You are strong. You are capable. You are resilient. You are a survivor, a warrior, a thriver. And don't let anyone, anything, ever make you feel otherwise. As I continue on my journey, I am reminded of the importance of self-care, of self-love, of self-compassion. I am reminded that we must be kind to ourselves, gentle with ourselves, patient with ourselves. We must take care of our bodies, our minds, our spirits. We must nourish ourselves, nurture ourselves, support ourselves. Because when we do, we become stronger, healthier, happier. We become the best versions of ourselves, the versions we were meant to be. The experience of sharing my story has been a liberating one. It's been an experience that has set me free, that has allowed me to heal, to recover, to move on. And I want to encourage you to do the same. Share your story, share your truth, share your voice. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. You are not alone. You are not isolated. You are part of a community of survivors, of warriors, of thrivers. And together, we can make a difference. We can create change. We can inspire hope. As I close this chapter of my life, I am reminded of the power of forgiveness. I am reminded that forgiveness is not for others, but for ourselves. It's a gift we give ourselves, a gift that sets us free. And I want to encourage you to forgive, to let go, to move on. Don't hold on to the past. Don't hold on to the pain. Release it, let it go, and move forward. Because when we do, we become lighter, freer, happier. We become the people we were meant to be, the people we were born to be. And so, I'll leave you with this. My story is not unique, but it is mine. It's a story of trauma, of abuse, of silence. But it's also a story of hope, of resilience, of survival. And I want to inspire you. I want to motivate you to find your own voice, your own story, your own truth. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. You are strong. You are capable. You are resilient. You are a survivor, a warrior, a thriver. And always remember, you are not alone. I still remember the day my life changed forever. The day my mother married a man with 3 sons. I was just a kid, and suddenly I was thrust into a new family with a new name, Christina Amelia French. It was like I was losing myself bit by bit. My mother had always been my rock, my safe haven, but now she seemed like a stranger, smiling and laughing with this new man, while I felt like an outsider in my own home. As I look back, I realize that this was just the beginning of a long and painful journey. I was forced to adapt to a new life, with new rules, new expectations, and new people. It was like I was living in a dream where nothing felt real and nothing felt like mine. My new stepfather, with his 3 sons, seemed to take over our lives, and I was just a small part of it, a small cog in a machine that was moving too fast for me to keep up. I remember feeling lost and alone, like I was drowning in a sea of unfamiliar faces. My mother was too busy being the perfect wife, the perfect mother, to notice my struggles, to notice my pain. She was too busy trying to make this new family work, to make it perfect, to make it happy. But I knew the truth, even back then. I knew that this new family wasn't perfect, that it wasn't happy, that it was just a facade, a mask that we wore to hide the truth. As I navigated this new world, I started to realize that I was losing my sense of identity. I was no longer just Christina. I was Christina Amelia French, a name that felt foreign, a name that felt like it belonged to someone else. I was no longer just a daughter. I was a stepdaughter, a sister, a part of a family that didn't feel like mine. It was like I was living in a constant state of confusion, where nothing felt clear, where nothing felt certain. But amidst all this chaos, there was one thing that remained constant: my stepfather's presence in my life. He was always there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for his moment to strike. And strike he did, every night, without fail. I remember the sound of his footsteps outside my room, the creak of the door as he opened it, the feeling of his eyes on me, watching me, waiting for me to make a move. It was like I was trapped in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. I tried to tell myself that it was just my imagination, that it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew the truth. I knew that something was wrong, that something was off. And I knew that I had to be careful, that I had to be quiet, that I had to be still. Because if I made a sound, if I made a move, I didn't know what would happen. I didn't know what he would do. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, I started to feel like I was living in a state of constant fear. I was always on edge, always waiting for the other shoe to drop, always waiting for something to happen. And then one night, it did. The second night, to be exact. That's when everything changed. But the second night, that's when everything changed. I still remember the first night he came into my room, the quiet footsteps outside my door, the soft creak as it opened. I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, but my mind was racing with thoughts of this new family I was supposed to be a part of. My stepfather's presence in my room was unexpected, and at first I felt more confused than scared. I didn't know what to make of it or why he was there. As I looked up at him, I felt a sense of unease, but I didn't know how to process it. Children have a way of sensing danger, even before they understand what it is. It's like a sixth sense that kicks in, warning them of potential harm. For me, that sense was screaming at me to be careful, to be alert, but I didn't know what to do with those feelings. So I did what many children do in situations like this. I stayed silent. I didn't say a word, hoping that if I just lay there, he would leave. And eventually, he did. But the silence that followed was deafening. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that something was wrong. The next morning, everything seemed normal. My stepfather was making breakfast in the kitchen. My mother was getting ready for work, and my stepbrothers were arguing over whose turn it was to use the bathroom. It was like the night before had never happened. And that's when the gaslighting started. I began to wonder if I had imagined the whole thing, if I had just dreamed it up. But as I went about my day, trying to make sense of what had happened, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I felt like I was living in a dream where nothing was as it seemed, And that's when I started to realize that my survival instinct was kicking in. I was learning to navigate this new reality, to find ways to protect myself from the unknown. As the day went on, I tried to push the thoughts of the night before out of my mind. I focused on my schoolwork, on my friends, on anything that could distract me from the feelings of unease that lingered inside me. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in danger, that I was walking on eggshells, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And then, as the sun started to set, casting a golden glow over our little house, I felt a sense of dread creeping in. I knew that night was coming, and with it, the possibility that he would come into my room again. I didn't know what to expect, or how to prepare myself for what might happen. All I knew was that I had to be ready, that I had to find a way to protect myself. As I lay in bed that night, listening to the sounds of the house settling around me, I felt a sense of anticipation building up inside me. I was waiting for something to happen, for something to change. And then, just as I was starting to drift off to sleep, I heard the quiet footsteps outside my door again. But the second night, that's when everything changed. I still remember the nights. They all blended together in a blur of fear and confusion. My stepfather's visits became a routine, a cycle that I couldn't escape. Every night, I'd lie in bed, waiting for the sound of his footsteps outside my door, the soft creak as it opened. And every morning, I'd wake up to an eerie silence, as if nothing had happened. But I knew what had happened, and the weight of that knowledge was crushing me. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, I started to feel like I was living in a nightmare. I was trapped in a world where I had to be silent, where I had to pretend that everything was okay, even when it wasn't. The shame and confusion I felt were overwhelming, and I didn't know how to process them. I felt like I was losing myself, like I was disappearing into this new reality. I tried to talk to my mother, to tell her what was happening, but she just didn't seem to care. She'd brush it off, tell me I was being paranoid, or that I was just being a difficult child. But I knew what I was feeling, and I knew what was happening. And then, one day, I realized that she knew too. She had to know, because she was always there, always present, yet always absent. She knew, and she did nothing. That realization was like a punch to the gut. It was like I'd been living in a dream world, thinking that my mother would protect me, that she would keep me safe. But she didn't. She chose to ignore it, to pretend that it wasn't happening. And that betrayal, that feeling of being abandoned by the one person who was supposed to love me unconditionally, it was almost too much to bear. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of emotions, unable to escape the pain and the shame. I didn't know how to deal with it, how to process it. All I knew was that I had to survive, that I had to find a way to get through each day. And so, I put on a mask, a facade of normalcy. I went to school, I laughed with my friends, I tried to blend in. But at night, I'd lie in bed, waiting for the sound of his footsteps, waiting for the darkness to descend. It's funny, looking back, I realized that I was living in a state of constant fear, constant anxiety. I was always on edge, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. But I didn't know how to stop it, how to make it end. All I knew was that I had to keep going, that I had to keep surviving. And so, I did. I survived, one day at a time, one night at a time. But the cost was high. It was a cost that I'm still paying today. As I look back, I realize that I was just a child, trying to navigate a world that was hostile and unforgiving. I was trying to make sense of things that didn't make sense, trying to find a way out of a situation that seemed impossible. And I'm not alone. I know that. There are so many others out there, so many others who are going through the same thing, And to them I want to say, you're not alone. You're not alone, and you're not to blame. But for now, let's just say that this is where the story gets darker. The nights, the silence, the shame, it all becomes a part of a larger narrative, a narrative that I'm still trying to make sense of today. And as I continue to tell my story, I hope that you'll stay with me, that you'll keep listening, because it's only by sharing our stories that we can begin to heal, that we can begin to find our way out of the darkness. And this is where the story gets darker. I still remember the smell of fresh paint and new books in my school hallway. It was my only escape, my sanctuary. Every morning, I'd put on a mask, literally and figuratively, trying to blend in with the other kids. I'd apply makeup, style my hair, and wear the trendiest clothes I could find, all in an attempt to look normal. My internal monologue would repeat, if I look normal, maybe I'll feel normal. I'd try to push aside the memories of the previous night, the sound of his footsteps, the creak of my door, and the feeling of being trapped. But as I walked through those school doors, I'd leave all that behind. Or at least I'd try to. I'd laugh with my friends, joke with my classmates, and participate in discussions, all in an effort to be like them, to be normal. I'd become a perfect daughter at home, trying to avoid any punishment or attention from my stepfather. But the truth was, I was living a double life, one that was slowly suffocating me. One day, something inside me snapped. I remember it like it was yesterday, the feeling of being tired, so tired of being afraid, tired of being silent. I finally fought back, not physically, but emotionally, mentally. I stood up for myself, and in that moment, I realized I wasn't the one who should feel ashamed. It was a moment of clarity, a moment that changed everything. As I look back, I realized that was the start of my journey towards freedom. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick, but it was a start. I began to understand that I had the power to choose how I reacted to my situation. I could choose to let it define me, or I could choose to rise above it. And that's what I want to tell you. Freedom isn't a word, it's a choice. It's a choice to stand up for yourself, to speak out, to share your story. So I want to ask you, what's your story? What's the silence you've been carrying around? Share it with me. Share it with the world. Let's break the silence together. Let's choose freedom, and let's start a movement. If you're still watching, I want to hear from you. Comment below. Share your story. And let's take back our power. Remember, freedom is a choice, and it's a choice we can make every day. So let's make it. Let's choose freedom, and let's never look back. There's one part of this story I never wanted to share, and honestly, I still don't know how my mother lived with herself after this. It's a memory that's etched in my mind like a scar, a constant reminder of the lie that ruined everything. I remember it like it was yesterday. The courtroom, the smell of old wood and stale air, the sound of my mother's voice trembling as she spoke. It was the moment my identity was stolen, the moment my life changed forever.